So my name is Nicholas Charles. I'm the music director of the Black Dyke Band. That's the conductor. In the olden days, I guess they used to have a resident conductor and a professional conductor. Nowadays, I do it all. It's a great pleasure when I look back at some of the great conductors. When I think of Geoffrey Brand, or I think of even the Godfather being Major Peter Parks. They used to come in for 3 times a year or even 4 times a year at special occasions, and they used to do perhaps 2 weeks preparation, do the contest and then go out, and it used to be really inspiring for the band. My job is very different. It's all-encompassing. I do all the rehearsals, all the concerts and all the contests. So what that really means in 17 years is I've done over 800 concerts and I've done all of the competitions. And so the band sees me not just for the best 2 weeks, they see me for every week of the year. So brass bands are in my DNA. When I started playing in Tredegar in South Wales, my father was the conductor. My brother was a euphonium player, and so I guess that whenever I went in the house, there was euphonium on the bottom of the stairs, on the top of the stairs, so there was never any excuse for practicing. My father one day was sitting around the kitchen table, and he said to my mum that he needed to move to the north of England because he wanted his sons to play in the best brass bands in the world. That was on a Monday, and on the Wednesday we moved. Since then, at the time it might have seemed hasty, but I look back and I think he was just bold. I came up here when I was 16. I won the British Solo Championships when I was 16, and I joined the British Open Champions on solo euphonium, the Yorkshire Imperial Band at that time, and there was 2 wonderful conductors there. One was John Pryce-Jones, and the other was Peter Kitson. Music, for me, it is important. You know, I'm the music director of the most famous brass band in the world. And, you know, never mind what you do or how successful you are, everybody always comes to tell you it's always been done before. I never let them get me down because really, they're always really inspiring me. And the biggest, I think, calling card that I could have at Black Dyke is the music commissions. When you look back at the piece of music that have already been commissioned by me for the band, we're well over 150 works. Perhaps the biggest compliment we could have this year is that the competitions that were for the Grand Shield, for the British Open and the National have all been commissioned by myself and the band. And so we still are pioneering in what we'd like to do. It's interesting that a lot of people call them the Dyke. They were always known as the Dyke. So at the time when I was at Tredegar Junior Band, our professional conductor with my father was Roy Newsom. And so Roy Newsom and Muriel, his wife, used to come and stay in the town. That's all they talked about. I was this person that was in the local pub just listening in awe of all of the stories that go with it. And I remember when Black Dyke came to Tredegar to play, and then the Tredegar Workmen's Club. The tickets were sold out, and you know, everybody just went there. My brother, who had the wonderful task then, he was solo euphonium at Tredegar, and he played second baritone in the same concert. So it's really quite something. But I guess because my brother and I are similar ages, one of us came to Black Dyke and the other didn't. I didn't come and play at Black Dyke. My brother was here for nearly 10 years, and he was the principal euphonium and the bandmaster along with James Watson. But when my brother then decided that after the James Watson era, that it was perhaps time for him to develop his own conducting career somewhere else, he contacted me and asked me, would I like to come to Black Dyke? I said that I would like to come, but I was with the Foden's band at the time. Foden's had just won the national championships for the first time in 40 years. So to say that I was feeling good was an understatement. But James Watson was my friend. And we very often used to have lots of conversations about the Black Dyke Band. I was privileged that I was making most of their records as producer. And so I decided that I'd phone James up and say, you know, I know that he had now finished with the band. And what did he think about me applying for the job? He said to me at that time that he'd like to ring me back. He rang me back about a day later and said, yeah, I must go for the job because he'd much rather me get it than anyone else. I got the job, and then James didn't speak to me for 3 years. He didn't speak to me for 3 years. But we owe him an enormous amount of work. It's easy to say yes and hard to say no. James, he was a pioneering guy. So when he said he wanted to bring women in, and when 12 people of the band stood up and said that they were going to leave, he stopped them and asked them, hadn't they forgot something? And they turned around and said, no. He said, no, your instruments as well. And when they left, he got another 12 in. I carried on in a similar way when I came to Black Dyke, because they were a tough lot. But when I came to this band, everybody smoked. I was the first person to ban smoking. It's little things now when you look back. But the president of the band was a gentleman called Donald Hanson. What a man. This band owes him a total debt. I'm sure that they wouldn't be here now without him. And you can't say that about many people. Donald was the chief executive and chairman of Bradford and Bingley, and he set everything up here. But his one dream was that he wanted to have a youth band. I explained to him that I had lots of passions about developing youth bands, but I thought to cherry pick the very best players in the area and call it the Black Dyke Band would do nothing for the community. And so I decided that I would form the Yorkshire Youth Band. We'd come together for about 10 weekends a year. All the soloists, myself, would come together, help develop them, then they go back to the community. And I think that's also one of my best calling cards, that we still develop that. Favourite highlights, there are so many of them, I've got to say, because when you consider in the last 15 years we've been to Australia, America numerous times, Bermuda, all the countries you can possibly imagine in Europe. But every time you walk out and the band is sat there and the audience goes quiet and you walk onto the stage, then you get the real feeling as you talk, because every hair on your hand stands up just like this, because even after 17 years, it's still the best job. I'm a big Manchester United fan. This is the Manchester United of banding. If they don't win every competition, they will be back. When I came to the band, it was, you appreciated how much this organisation had in its history. But when I came to the band, I was leaving the national champions, the Foden's band, to come to Black Dyke. They hadn't qualified for London for a number of years, which is crazy, except when we're in Yorkshire. And in Yorkshire, the consistency of best bands are enormous. So I think probably the first national win on Albion will be critical, because never mind how many concerts I do or how much I develop the youth band, concerts are our lifeblood, but competitions are the sport. And in this band, you get hired and fired on how good you are in the competitions. Lots of great trips. Australia was a good one, because I decided to involve a soloist with us. My brother and I, Bob, we were lucky that we toured the world for perhaps 20 weeks a year at one stage. We went to Australia and we were the warm-up act for a gentleman called James Morrison. James could play every instrument, but unlike most people, when he played one instrument, he wasn't quite as good on the other. He was brilliant on everything. In our terms, probably the most popular TV program is perhaps Top Gear. He presents Top Gear. He married Miss Australia, and yet his passion was playing with Black Dyke on that full month. We had a bit of fun because we were travelling every day. We arrived in Perth, finished up in Sydney, but he was a fanatical on great sports cars, and he knew that I liked them. I just didn't own one. And so one of the times we got on the band coach, and just as I was getting on the band coach, he said, "No, Nick, Maestro, you can't travel on the coach." And we went outside and there was the Aston Martin, and we put a little video together, except I got so many emails saying that's terrible. How does Nick think he can travel in an Aston Martin and the band in a coach? They are really good. We're at a time where we've just come back from Switzerland. It's our annual concert that we do in the KKL in Lucerne. I guess it's the difference how you're not always appreciated on your doorstep, but when you go away, very much so. And so in that particular concert, we have 2,500 people that come to our concert every year. The tickets go on sale in January, and in February, there are none left. A huge difference is that perhaps an average ticket price for Black Dyke in 2016 is probably around about £12 a ticket. In Switzerland this weekend, it was £80. £80, and we play on the Saturday, and very often on the Friday night is the Berlin Philharmonic Orchestra. I've got some players in the band that I'm so proud of. They're still my players. A person that comes to mind is someone like John Doyle. He was here when James Watson was here, and when I carried on, I developed him as a flugel player. Of course, these players have real characters about them, because I don't just look for the good player. Being a good player is the starting point, but it's their character that when the lights come on will come through. And I remember John was always a great character, and I remember one day he wasn't very happy, and he came down to see me, and we have certain rules which I'll tell you about, but he came down to see me after a band practice, and he came to say, you know, boss, I'm not happy with this, and I think we're doing too many concerts, and so forth. And I could hear that some of the players were outside sort of listening. And when I came out of my room, John was talking to them, and you could hear him saying, so what did you tell the boss? He said, I told him we're doing too many concerts. He said, and what did he say? He said, I don't know. He said, but he's just told me that I hope I enjoy my new retirement as I'm not a member of the band anymore. And we've remained friends right up till now. But when I came to the band, it's a professional job. Connecting the band probably only occupies 50% of the work. So I had to get a situation where I wanted to be close to the band, but yet separate enough that I could make positive decisions. I have a rule where if a band practice starts at 7:30 at night, anybody can come and meet me from 5 o'clock in the afternoon, but nobody comes to see me after band practice. You might think, why? Well, I think a lot about my decisions that I make within the band. Sometimes I can make that decision when I put it into action. You know, a decision that I've made for the last 3 weeks, let's say, thinking about, they want to respond within 5 seconds. My rule is, if you want to come and see me, you can see me 24 hours later, and normally, after that time, they've had time to think about it, and they come around to the positive way of thinking. I've never travelled on the coach with the band to a concert. I think that's their space. And do I think that they perhaps have little conversations about perhaps some of the music that they don't like with me? Probably they do, but that's their space, because just like that Brassnoff film, you see the conductor and two players of the band, and they're talking to each other, and they say, yeah, I'm telling that conductor, I'm not going to band practice tonight. We've done too many band practices. The conductor comes past on his push bike. He says, see you tonight. I said, of course, see you there, boss. I think it's all about that communication. And so it's not just communicating on one day, 1 week, or 1 year. That's why being the conductor here for the last 17 years, I know I'm the second longest conductor in 160 years. I will always be the second longest because Arthur O'Pearce was here for so long. But so for instance, after every major event, I'll write to the band individually to give a progress report or how I think the performance went. I reward the band when the band wins a competition. I purchase a bottle of champagne for each individual player with their name on. We win together and we lose together, and it's the concerts then that bring us to it. But it is that communication that helps so much. And even in tonight's rehearsal, I know that I'll be meeting people before band so I can understand their challenges. So the band room that we're in right now, when I came, it was pretty derelict. There was one room where the band practiced, which was 300 square feet. The room which now I developed, which was called the Players' Lounge, didn't exist. The library didn't even have a wall that separated it. Now it has a fireproof wall that goes through it. There wasn't the new 20th or 21st century band room acoustically treated to allow percussion to come in. It wasn't here. And so when I came, the band had just had sponsorship with the Bradford and Bingley Building Society. But during that time, they hadn't spent anything on the band room. They hadn't developed the building in any shape. Without that sponsorship, in the last 17 years, myself and the band have developed the building totally. It's now friendly for people to come in, and with this extra funding now from the Heritage, it's going to take it to the next level. It's pretty simple. I am a sports fan, and everybody knows that I relate a lot to the great Alex Ferguson, because I think that there's so many things are to do with sport. But perhaps this one should go to Bill Shankly, the great Liverpool manager, who said, brass bands is bigger than life and death. No, it's more than that. It's more than that, because these people here, it's their passion. I have a deal that when they pull their cars outside, and if you bear in mind that the average person travels nearly 200 miles a round trip, they park their old life or their professional life outside, and then when they walk in here, they become musicians. And so when they open the door, the first thing they see is a clock. If they're on time, it's a great feeling. If it's not, you know you're late. There are no other clocks in the band room. When you come up, you put your instrument there, you come into the band room. It's very, very rare we don't start rehearsals early. But as you're leaving this place after working so hard, there's a sign. After working so hard, doing 50 concerts a year, doing at least 2 rehearsals, as you come down the stairs, there's a sign and it says, "Living the dream." And because for everybody here, this is the passion. Through the Heritage Lottery, we can take this to the next level. And I guess there will always be challenges that we've got to do. But it reminds me of another great composer that once stood in front of Black Dyke, and his words I can still hear now. His name was Arthur Butterworth. And he said that he was commenting on how great the music was. But he said, there is only one Berlin Philharmonic Orchestra. There is only one Vienna Boys Choir. And there is only one Black Dyke Band. Younger players, this is exciting. You've got to enjoy everything you do. And so as well as conducting the Black Dyke Band, I'm proud that I formed the National Children's Band. They are members from the age of 8 up to 12. I loved brass bands. I enjoyed it. I didn't go on holiday. I went to the National Youth Band of Great Britain. And as soon as you can get into those clubs, into those bands with your generation, if young players can be in bands with young people, with people of their own age, that's the best thing you can do, because you'll all enjoy it together. So I'm not sure. Conducting Black Dyke is the best job in the world. People don't know what happens behind the scenes when you do it, but it's the best job in the world. And having the best job in the world is the hardest job to keep. It's the one that everybody wants. That's why there are so many conductors that have been here only for 3 or 4 years, or just do X amount of contests. For me, I'm living my own personal dream with the band that I really want. But if I ever left this band, brass bands would still be in my DNA, and I'd still want to be conducting.